Hello fiction writers and welcome to week 3. I've been getting some great stories, so keep up the great writing. And let's move right into our week 3 topic, which is plotting a story, or really the shape of a story. And I'm going to start out with something that is called Freytag's pyramid. So I'll write that up here for you. Freytag, it's Gustav Freytag. He was a 19th century novelist, and in reading tragedies, dramas, he found that there was a typical structure that he could see repeated over and over again, and he created what is now called Freytag's pyramid to describe how the action fit together. And it's like the story arc that we talked about at the very beginning. And Freytag shaped it like this. So you can see why it would be called Freytag's pyramid. Now, he had these labels for it. This is where your story starts. And in this part we call exposition. And exposition just means telling. And so this is where you're getting any background information, you're setting up the story, letting us know where we are, who our characters are, what's going on a little bit. When you get about here, something happens, and that's called the inciting incident. So that's something happens that sets the story in motion at that point. I talked about how stories need a problem, they need a conflict. This might be where you introduce that problem or conflict, and suddenly we've gone from just hearing about some characters, which is entertaining for a little bit, but people don't want an entire novel where nothing happens, where you're just watching these people in their day-to-day lives and there's never any conflict. So at some point there's an inciting incident. From there, that's where the action starts to build. And we call all of the things that happen along here rising action. And as is suggested by the trajectory here, we're building. It's getting tenser and tenser and tenser until you reach this apex at the top. That would be the climax. And that's where everything just kind of comes to a head. It's been building, you know it's coming, and then bam! It's got to resolve. You've hit a point where it can't go any further. Something's got to give, right? So you hit the climax, and then as things begin to resolve, you have falling action all along here, which leads you to the resolution and denouement. And you will recall from the very first video that this wonderful word translates from the French, and it is untying the knot. So this is Freytag's pyramid. And like I said, he developed it to talk about tragedies in particular. And if you look at Shakespeare's plays, there are kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 key points on this pyramid structure. There are 5 acts in all of Shakespeare's plays, and you have, usually in the first act, you're setting things up. And in the second act, you are building and building and building. You usually hit some kind of climax somewhere in the third act, and the fourth act begins to resolve, and then the fifth act gives you the ending, like how everybody ended up. So this applies really nicely to tragedies in particular, but you can apply it to a lot of fiction, and people do these days. But, as we talked about back in that very first video, stories aren't always shaped exactly like this. Some stories start right off with a bang, and you don't feel like you have any flat time at all. You might get a teeny bit of exposition, but the first sentence even could be something that draws you in, and that's wonderful. That's a wonderful thing to shoot for, is to, by the time you finish this very first part, to really have hooked your reader and drawn them in. So another thing is that often you build and you build and you build, and you don't have an equal amount of time after you hit the climax. after you hit the climax, you tend to have a very short period before your resolution. So people give stories different shapes. Some people would give a story, instead of this very pointy pyramid, some people would give it an arc. And we talked about that before. And it would be the same things: exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution, denouement. In your story arc, we talked about the fact that it could be like an upside down check mark. Exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution, denouement. And some stories even feel like they have plateaus and other smaller peaks. So sometimes you feel like your story builds for a bit, hits a point, it plateaus for a little, then it starts to build, something big happens, and then you're kind of resting for a bit, but oh, you know something else is coming and it's the big one. So sometimes you have a story that is more shaped like this. And what I'm going to ask you to do this week is think about the shape of your story. So I have put online in the plotting and planning folder a copy of Freytag's pyramid, and it is an adaptation of this. It's differently shaped. I think that the one that's online is a little more like the upside down check mark, in that it might go like this. And so you can take a look at that, and it even has, they did a funny job of giving you kind of a sample story, and it's pretty amusing to read, and explaining what would be happening at all these different points. So take a look at that, and then I want you to consider the shape of your story. And this is where we will have diverging assignments depending on what you would like to do in this next week. So if you are writing a story, go ahead, continue writing it. If there's a story that you want to work with, keep working with it, and that is fine. And then there are a set of things that I would like you to do with that story. If you are not writing a story, or if you're writing one but you need a break and you need a more short-term assignment to get you thinking again, or to jumpstart you creatively, then I have a second possibility. So if you have a story that you want to continue to work on, set yourself a goal. And that might be a number of pages that you want to complete. Might be a particular scene that you're feeling like, oh, I really need to write that scene this week. Or it could be focused on getting your character from point A to point B. So wherever your character is now, you know you want to get them to this next place, and maybe that's your goal for the week. So that's, if you're writing a story, number one, set a goal. Number two, write those pages, or that page. And number three, I'll say write those pages and turn them in. And then number three is going to be to make your version of Freytag's pyramid for where you are in your story right now. So we'll say make your own Freytag's pyramid. Whatever shape you think works for your story. And your story's probably not finished, so you might not have the complete shape. So just wherever you think you are, plot out whatever your pyramid or arc or check mark or mountain range looks like right now. And, a little X with you are here or I am here to mark where you are in your story. So make your own Freytag's pyramid for your story. That is if you are working on a story. If you are not working on a story, or you want a break, you want a shorter assignment, we'll call that no story. And if you're in that category, then you're going to do this. Go to the Generating Story Ideas folder and you will see 2 documents that are named story opening sentences. Let me double check that. I'm pretty sure that's what they're called. Yes. So you'll see story opening sentences and story opening sentences too. So there are 2 documents. Each one of them has 20 sentences that could be used to start a story. What you need to do is choose 4 sentences that you like. And if you can't find 4 in one document, then look at the other one too. Choose 4 sentences. You will write each of those sentences at the top of a blank page. Or on your computer. Maybe you're doing it on your computer, and if that's the case, then they can be in one document, but you want a page for each of them. And then what you're going to do is you're going to need to set a timer. And this is a very important part of the exercise because it will keep your mind moving and hopefully prevent block of any sort. So set a timer for 3 minutes. And then what you do is for each of these 4 sentences, add 1 sentence. Add a second sentence. And then, after that timer goes off, if you're using a pencil, flex your hand, get the cramps out. If you're using your keyboard, wiggle your fingers, give them a break. Set the timer again. So I'm just going to do ditto marks here. Set the timer for 3 minutes and add a 3rd sentence. When that 3 minutes is over, 1 more time, add a 4th sentence, and then you can take a little break. Then what you have at that point, you have 4 story openings, 4 separate paragraphs. Then you will look at those paragraphs, choose 1, paragraph, and continue it. And you're going to shoot for a page. Or we could call that, 15 to 20 more sentences. So 1 full page or probably a total of 24 sentences or so. And then you're going to have a really good start on a story, maybe even a complete story if it's flash fiction. And you'll turn that in. And you will do Freytag's pyramid for that. So I'm just going to write down here, Freytag it. Okay?